بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما يا رب العالمين. My dear respected brothers and elders and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I just want to apologize to our weekly tafsir group. MashaAllah, we have a dedicated group of 20 brothers and sisters who join in every Friday to listen to tafsir. And MashaAllah, some of us here might also be like, where's the tafsir today? So that's my apologies to everyone who came for that. We'll restart next week, inshallah, continuing from the exciting session of Surah Al-Anbiya. And I wanted to thank, MashaAllah, the respected administration of the masjid and the committee members, MashaAllah, for really showing their really just sincere support for this project of the madrasa. MashaAllah, it's been running for this year, and it's only because of, MashaAllah, the efforts and the du'as of the community members. And Allah SWT accept it from you. There are students even now, MashaAllah, that are studying night and day and night, to try their best to become people who can be considered inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. So I thank the community members for that, MashaAllah. So I hope today, inshallah, we can clarify a lot of doubts and a lot of questions people might have about this project. And I hope, inshallah, if you all have questions as well, we can address some of them at the end, inshallah. It's going to be more of an informative section in the second half. We're going to first talk about the virtues and the fadail of a madrasa in the first part, inshallah ta'ala. And I myself am a parent as well. And so I want you to know that I made this presentation and the idea or the fikr of what a parent would think about when I send my child somewhere. Because you're putting him in the hands of someone else. And we may not think about it, but when we send our kids to a public school, we're basically say, do whatever you want with them, teach them whatever you want. And sometimes we close our eyes to what they're teaching in there. And so that's a very dangerous way of thinking. You can, from the way I just explained it to you. So I understand that idea that you will hand your children to us, and then we'll take responsibility of them. And I really understand that responsibility, not just because of the people here, but in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who we all have to answer to one day. So I want everyone to understand that. So that's how I adjusted this presentation. So we'll go through, inshallah, first and foremost, the virtues of learning in Islam, the madrasa syllabus, what a child will be doing in the daily schedule. And then we'll talk about homeschooling at the end, because I know it's a big question that a lot of parents might have about homeschooling. So we all know very famously in the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ is only asked to make one dua for increasing of something. You don't find any other dua in the Quran where the Prophet ﷺ is told by Allah, O Nabi of Allah, increase me in this, say increase me in this. The only thing the Prophet ﷺ asked in the Quran to do is, Qul Rabbi zidni ilma, Allah increase me in knowledge. This means then that this is the most vital and most important thing. That the Nabi of Allah, ﷺ, he himself is also asked by Allah Ta'ala to make sure you ask this, that Allah increase me in knowledge. We know that Musa ﷺ, that subhanAllah, an entire section of Surah Al-Kahf, which we recite on Fridays, is devoted to the fact that Musa ﷺ he was told by Allah Ta'ala to go and seek knowledge. And he learned it from Khidr alayhi salam, and he has his entire journey because of that. So even prophets are not exempt from learning knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You find in the beginning of time, Adam alayhi salam is the same exact way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him his virtue because of the fact that he knows. And so then Allah shows him in front of all the angels, you thought these human beings would become corrupt and wicked individuals? Look at Adam alayhi salam. He's superior to you because he knows more than you. So this virtue is only because of knowledge. And I never want to, you have to understand this. And I want to make this very clear from the beginning, from the get-go. Islam is a religion of education. Islam is a religion of learning. It's a religion we pride on this. The Prophet ﷺ, there are books written about him, just about his teaching method, his style, his methodology. Literally, and I'm not even exaggerating this. Psychology today will clearly agree with modern teaching styles, will agree with the way the Prophet ﷺ used to teach. Even presentations and stuff like that, putting diagrams and charts. The Prophet ﷺ literally drew images in the ground to show Sahaba radiallahu anhum how this is what it looks like. The Prophet ﷺ he was the most exemplar or extraordinary teacher alayhi salatu wasalam. So we need to understand this as Muslims. We love education, we love knowledge, we love learning. This is what makes us a community. Okay? So the Prophet ﷺ had said though about knowledge of deen specifically, he said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you all is the one who learns the Quran and teaches it. When we are asked who's the best of mankind, who's the best out there, we'd probably call Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or Musk or whatever. We call all these different people because they're so important to us, because we think, oh, wow, they have lots of money. Wah, wah. You know, their wealth is a fraction of the wealth of Fir'aun. That's what I understand. Their wealth is a fraction of Qarun. Our wealth is a wealth of their wealth. You know, we're just having portions of other people's wealth. Now, money doesn't mean anything on the Day of Judgment. It's what you did with the money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never ask you this question about how much you left in your bank account. He'll ask you, what did you spend from your bank account? So we have to understand, when we are asked about wealth, and we're thinking that the best people in the world are people who earn money, that's not the way the Prophet ﷺ understood it. Okay, you could say that I think this person is the best. The Prophet ﷺ said the best of all of mankind is the one who spends his time learning the Quran and teaching the Quran. That same madrasa teacher that we neglect, that Qari Sahib that used to teach us when we were 4 or 5 years old, that we don't even care about him anymore, we never give him a phone call. He spent his entire life teaching Quran. His beard became gray and white because he was teaching Quran. The Prophet ﷺ said that man is the best of mankind. We have to understand that. The Prophet ﷺ also said, "Ma yuridillahu bi khayran yufaqihu fid din." When Allah Ta'ala wants good for someone, He bestows upon him the understanding of Islam. When Allah Ta'ala loves someone and wants good for someone, He doesn't say, okay, go become this or this or this. And I'm not downgrading any profession. Really, I'm not. I love anyone who studies and anyone who learns. I got my du'as all the time. I make dua for doctors all the time. I love anyone who goes to study. But you have to understand what level is deen. That's what we're trying to say here. The Prophet ﷺ said, when Allah Ta'ala wants good for someone, the only profession He gives that person is that He gives them the study of Islam. He makes them the faqih, He makes them the jurist, He makes them a person who studied fiqh, studied hadith, studied tafsir. When you have your child here and they're learning, from the nasiha curriculum, or they're learning from maktab, you have to understand that Allah Ta'ala wants good for them. You have to understand that. If you send your kid to become a hafiz of the Quran, you must believe that Allah Ta'ala wants good for your child. Because this is what the Prophet ﷺ has told us. So any parent who has that, make shukr to Allah. Alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala wants good for my children. May Allah preserve us on this goodness. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, when the one who goes and treads the path of knowledge, Allah Ta'ala makes his way easy for him to Jannah. He'll have the easy path into Jannah. Prophet ﷺ has also said that the dunya kulluha mal'una, mal'unun ma fiha. The dunya is entirely cursed, and accursed of what is in it, except the remembrance of Allah. Illa dhikrullah, wa ma walahu, and that which pleases Allah. Wa alimun aw muta'allimun. The Prophet ﷺ said the only two professions that are not cursed, and every other profession is in its essence cursed, is the only two professions which are exempt from this, is the alim of deen, the scholar of deen, and the one who goes and learns deen. So everyone should make their profession in life. Your occupation in life should not be that I have this such and such job. My occupation in life is what? I'm a student of knowledge. I'm going out to study deen. My life is about learning Islam. As much as I can learn. I come to every khutbah so I can learn something. I sit in every dars so I can learn something. My life is about, let me find another hadith to study, another ayah of the Quran to study. Maybe I can increase my tajweed. My life should be about just studying Islam. The Prophet ﷺ said these are the best positions to ever be in. And then the Prophet ﷺ said the superiority of the alim over the devout worshipper is like my superiority over the most inferior amongst you. The Prophet ﷺ said the example of the alim over the general worshipper in Islam is like the example of the moon over the stars. And then the Prophet ﷺ said the way that I am compared to all of the believers is the same example of the alim versus the normal Muslim. May Allah give us understanding about what level these people have in our deen. They're warasatul anbiya. They're inheritors of the Prophet ﷺ. When your child you set your child to become a Maulana or alima or a sheikha or whatever it might be, a mufti or a qari, whatever, you must recognize that, mashallah, you're deciding to say, I'm going to make you the best of mankind. That's the profession you chose for them. Don't we all want best for our children? Don't we want them to be the best? We can put them on a stage on the graduation day, and that's a great stage. They'll get the diploma. They might become the best of the class. They might get 6 or 7 different awards, but at the end of the day, all the rewards will fade in this world. How about I tell you about a bigger graduation stage? A more magnificent one, in front of trillions of people, in front of all of creation, on the Day of Judgment, when your child is given the honor and the status of, congratulations, you are a hafiz of the Quran, and everyone is watching that. Or that the fact that you sent your child for that, and then he becomes a true Maulana on that day, a true alim of deen on that day. Or you sent your daughter to study, so now she becomes a true alima on that day. Allah Ta'ala, in front of all of mankind, in front of all the prophets ﷺ, will give them that honor. And guess who's going to come on the stage next? I want to ask anyone, if your kid went through high school or whatever, did they ever bring the parents onto the stage? They don't care. They don't care. It's all what? Individualism. America is what? Me, myself, and I. Start from the bottom, now I'm here. My bootstraps. I got up by myself. In Islam, it's what? When the child receives the reward as the hafiz, whatever, then the parents are brought to. Hey, parents, come. And then the parents are given their reward as well. You have to remember that. We have to understand that. Whatever my child receives, I'm getting a portion of that too. The Prophet ﷺ said literally, and I flipped it for you. The Prophet ﷺ said the parents will receive the reward first, then the hafiz will receive after. So imagine the hafiz is waiting under the age of, he's like, I've read like 15,000 tarawihs, mashallah. I've been doing mad tarawihs, mashallah. He's waiting to go up there. And then Allah says, bring his parents. So come on, I'm waiting for this. I'm waiting for the whole night. Like, come on, you can't do this. So this is the idea here. In Islam, we always love our parents. We never forget them. In any dua you're looking at, they're always making dua for parents. The Prophet ﷺ said, the angels, the dwellers of the heavens and the earth, even the ants in the holes and the fish in the sea, they supplicate for forgiveness for the one who teaches people knowledge. Allahu Akbar. The entire creation makes dua. Ya Allah, forgive this individual. I tell you, people who sit here in this type of study, everyone looks down on you, right? May Allah protect us. May Allah give us tawfiq and understanding. Everyone looks down on him. It's like, oh man, bichara, he's the only thing he's doing. Sometimes some parents come to me, honestly. I'll tell you quite honestly, parents come to me and tell me, well, I feel, I feel for you. You don't do anything in the day. You don't do anything in the day. And I'm just like, yeah, make dua for me. What am I supposed to explain? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do, right? You don't appreciate it. No one appreciates it, right? Your regular Maulana is like the dal, and every other Maulana is like biryani, right? So what can you do? I don't care, right? MashaAllah, we'll do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah give us understanding and give us tawfiq. These things are making dua for us. The Prophet ﷺ says, and this is the final one, Allah ta'ala does not take away knowledge by taking away books, okay? He doesn't take away knowledge by snatching it from the people. It is not when, the knowledge of the deen will not be lifted because the kitabs of Allah go away. Because wallahi, if even the Qur'ans all were to disappear, and hypothetically speaking, all of them were to vanish in a single night, you get two hufaz together, they'll reproduce the Qur'an. You have scholars who memorize Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Nasai, Ibn Majah. You have scholars who memorize these hadith books, Riyadh al-Salihin. MashaAllah, our first year students are memorizing a hadith book, Zadul Talibin, 327 hadith. They can narrate verbatim to you. MashaAllah, we're studying the Tahawiyah, right, in part-time alim course. Next year, they're going to memorize it, right? We memorize our books. It's not just you just read them. You memorize them, right? They stay with you. So we can produce a book after book after book. That's not a problem, They can't do that with the Bible or the Torah ever. We can do that with the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah doesn't take away the knowledge by snatching it from the people, but He takes it away by taking away the alims. He takes away the ulama, the scholars, because there's no one else to explain it anymore. Till none of the scholars stay alive, then what happens is what? The ignorant people will take ignorant people as their leaders, who will, when they're asked to give fatwa, they'll deliver them without knowledge. And so they themselves are astray and they'll lead other people astray. We ask Allah for protection that we don't see those times. But those times are coming. We lost many ulama during this last year. Great ulama like Mufti Pampuri Sahib rahmatullahi alayhi. We lost Yunus Jaunpuri Sahib rahmatullahi alayhi a year back. We lost Muhammad. We lost another great notable scholar in Pakistan rahmatullahi alayhi. He wrote such a huge refutation of the Qadianis, mashallah, in like volumes of work, mashallah. We lost so many ulama. May Allah accept them all, and may Allah grant me Jannah Firdaus al-A'la. So now the feeling that you're understanding is that the Prophet ﷺ kept pushing people to become scholars. The Prophet ﷺ wanted people to learn Islam, and he pushed them and pushed them and pushed them to the point that Sahaba they were just so in love with this knowledge. I give you this hadith here. Jabir ibn Abdullah radhiyallahu anhu. He said, once I came to know that there's a hadith which it had reached me through one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. He said, once I heard a hadith from one of the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, and so I at once started my journey on my camel, and it took me 1 month till I reached the house of Abdullah ibn Unais al-Ansari in Syria. Jabir radhiyallahu anhu was in Medina. He travels for 1 month because he heard there's one hadith from this one Sahabi that I can go learn. So he travels from there all the way up to Syria. You know how many thousands of miles that is? He travels just because what? One qawl of the Prophet ﷺ, one saying of the Prophet ﷺ. And then he said, I sent the message that Jabir was at his door, and he came out and he hugged me. And I said, I have come here to ask you about a hadith that has reached me, which I had not heard before. And I fear that one of us might die, and I might become deprived from hearing this hadith from you. This is their love for it. And I can quote you, we don't have enough time. I can quote you hundreds upon hundreds of stories like this. From Sahaba, from Tabi'een, from our ulama. I only brought you one here, about this Imam Abu Hatim al-Razi. His son is Ibn Abi Hatim, right? Son of Abu Hatim. Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi writes this amazing tafsir collection. If you're thinking Tabari is a great collection of tafsir, you've not seen Ibn Abi Hatim. Tabari was like, he was a, retweet doesn't equal endorsements. Like he was a person who collected everything in his tafsir, and he didn't really check them. He's like, I'll leave them for great scholars to check the books, and they'll check if it's hadith, it's weak, it's strong, or whatever. Ibn Abi Hatim, right, the son of Abu Hatim here, he's like, no, I'm only going to give you authentic stuff. He writes 15 volumes like that. Huge amount of work, right? His father, he's talking about his father here. He said, I heard my father, Imam Abu Hatim, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Razi, say that the first time I left home to seek knowledge, I stayed out for 7 years. I counted every step I took, okay? When I counted up to 1,000 farsakh, how big is a farsakh? A farsakh is around 3 miles or 5 kilometers. So therefore, 1,000 farsakh will be how much? 3,000 miles. He said, when I counted 3,000 miles of walking, your pedometer, he's like, I stopped counting. Then he tells us about where he walked to. As for my walking from Kufa to Baghdad, I don't remember how many times I covered this journey. From Makkah to Medina was many times. From the city of Sana'a, which is in the far west of Egypt, walking. From Egypt to Ramla, walking. From Ramla to Baitul Maqdis, walking. From Ramla to Asqalan, walking. And then he goes and says, from Ramla to Tabariya, walking. From Tabariya to Damascus, walking. From Damascus to Hims, walking. From Hims to Antakya, from Antakya to Tarsus. And he said, I returned back to Tarsus to Hims because of a hadith that was left for me to hear. He said, I forgot one hadith, so I went all the way back. And he kept going. He says, so I heard the hadith, then I traveled from Hims to Baysan, from Baysan to Raqqa, from Raqqa I traveled to Baghdad. And before my journey to the land of Sham, I traveled from Wasit to the Nile, from the Nile to Kufa. I did this entire journey walking. He would not take a camel ride. There are certain scholars like that. They said we never seen them on a camel because they wanted the full ajr of traveling for knowledge. They didn't want to lose a single ajr of walking. So this was my first trip when I was 20 years old. Now you guys, 20-year-old boys, you're like, what are we doing with our lives? Call of Duty, Fortnite, PUBG. That's all our life is about. This man has traveled the entire Islamic world because what? He's searching for hadith. He said that was my first trip when I was 20 years old, and I traveled for 7 years. MashaAllah. And I'm telling you that that's just one story. I have so many more scholars we could talk about. But I'm just showing you how Islam, how much love we had for knowledge. Education was what we were about. Even if the hadith was as far as you can imagine, we would go out and get that hadith because it's the Nabi alayhi salatu. This is literally your showing of your love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When hadiths are mentioned, you don't go and say, oh, okay, let me run away as quick as I can. If hadiths are mentioned, you say, all right, I'm going to sit down and listen to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How can you not say we're an ummati of the Prophet alayhi salatu when we see the book of hadith is out and then we go and say, yeah, but like the football game is on. What's wrong with us? How can we say we're true ummatis then? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hadiths are being shared and we decide to leave. This is what the ummah was about at one time. So the Prophet ﷺ, this is the type of teaching he gave us. Now for our children, قالت أخراهم لأولاهم ربنا هؤلاء يضلون فآتهم عذابا ضعفا من النار. If we do not give our children this type of upbringing, this type of love for Islam, this love for knowledge, the Quran tells us that in Jahannam there are two groups of people. That the last of them will say about the first of them, oh Allah, they had misled us, so give them a double punishment of the fire. What does this mean? Some scholars have written under this that children will curse their parents. Children will curse their parents because they will enter into the fire of Jahannam and they'll say, Ya Allah, if our parents only told us about deen and Islam, they didn't teach us about anything. And so Allah, give them double punishment. May Allah want to protect us, that we don't want to see that fate. At the same time, what do we find? That the Prophet ﷺ teaches us other du'as. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. That a person whose children are actually on a higher state than them in Jannah, Allah will bring the parents up to that same level so that they don't lose the attachment to their children. We find, and so this is the idea that Islam had brought. So now what happens is the Sahaba, they don't take this and they run with it. So the أول من جمع الأولاد في المكتب عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه وعمر عامر بن عبد الله الخزاعي رضي الله عنه أن يلازمهم للتعليم وجعل رزقه من بيت المال. The first one to gather children in maktabs, and I'll explain the concept of maktab in a second. It says the first one to gather children in maktabs was Umar radiallahu anhu. He commanded Amir ibn Abdullahi that he should teach them and the children, and he stipulated a salary for him from the Baytul Mal. He said, your only job to Amir, he told Amir, your only job is that you need to teach these children how to read the Quran, and you teach them how to memorize the Quran, and you teach them how to love the Quran. And that was their only job. Now it says maktab here. Now what are you thinking about when you think of the maktab? You're thinking about a part-time program, after-school program for 2 hours. This is not what maktab meant in their time. His system was 7 days a week, from Fajr to Asr. What was it? You would probably call it a madrasa. You would not call it a maktab. Okay, it was shortened to 6 days a week because parents complained, because that's what parents do, right? So then they could shorten to 6 days a week with a break in the middle of the day. This is literally, by the way that the madrasas today are operated is the same exact way Umar radiallahu anhu made it. Because what did he do? They start from the morning, Fajr, after breakfast you start, and then you start all the way to Zohar time. There's a small break in between. Then you go all the way to Asr time, right? So Umar radiallahu anhu was the one who established this, and even 1400 years later, we're still doing the same exact thing. And it's 6 days a week because you only have 1 day of the week off, and which is traditionally he put it as Friday because it's the day that Muslims should come for Jumu'ah, right? So thereafter, what happens is what? Classes for advanced education. So that was the primary school. The madrasa was the school that all children used to go to. They used to learn their Islam. And then there was advanced education, which would be held in the masajid. If you wanted to learn fiqh, or if you wanted to learn Arabic, or if you wanted to learn hadith or tafsir, you would find Hasan al-Basri radiallahu anhu sitting in one spot in the masjid. You go to him, and he would teach you tafsir, he teach you hadith. Ibn Abbas, for example, radiallahu anhuma, he had a single day of the week. Every day of the week, he taught a different subject. Then the students will come and they'll learn it. So they will come to his house, they come to the masjid, they'll learn from him. So everything goes from a teacher to student basis. You can just learn from the teacher directly. So Imam Hanifa radiallahu anhu, for example, he had a corner in the masjid which he used to teach aqidah. He used to teach a creed and beliefs. And in another corner of the masjid was Hamad ibn Abi Sulaiman, who was a teacher of fiqh, right? So at one time, Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu was answering these great questions of belief and aqidah and creed and everything. A lady came up to him with a very simple question about some issue of menstruation. And then he couldn't answer the question. He said, hey, go to Hamad. He's on the other side of the masjid. Ask him the question. So the lady gets up and goes. She asks Hamad. Hamad answers her very quickly. And then the lady comes back and says to Abu Hanifa, and she gives him the answer and says, what's wrong with you? You're such a big imam. You have such a big gathering, right? Everyone likes to hear about controversial stuff, aqidah, beliefs, right? You get to fight with people all the time. He has a big gathering. The lady says, look at your big gathering. You don't even know basic fiqh. So Abu Hanifa, he's a humble guy. So he took his sandals and he said that I took my sandals and I walked over to Hamad's dars and I sat there for the next 17 years. So literally you would find Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala would teach next to the qabr of Nabi alayhi salatu salam. Everyone would just be, if you wanted to have advanced education, just come to the masjid. The Maulana is there. The Imam is there. The Alim is there. You want to learn, just come and sit. And it's free education, right? They're not going to charge you. You just sit there. The more you want to learn, the more advanced you'd get. Abu Hanifa used to be at the back of the gathering. But then Hamad, what he would do is every day he would test all the students and see how much they memorized from yesterday. So some students would remember, some would forget. Then he asked Abu Hanifa what he remembered. Every single thing the Sheikh said from the yesterday, he would narrate word by word. So Hamad said, you need to sit in the front. No one gets to sit in front of you because of how well of a student he was. And so Durus in Masjid Nabawi, Makkah al-Mukarramah, Kufa, Basra, Egypt, etc. Lessons will be conducted night and day and night. There was one time where Imam Muhammad rahimahullah was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu. Imam Muhammad rahimahullah, someone wanted to learn hadith from him. He said, I only have time from the time at the Tahajjud time. That's my only time I have to teach you. If you want to learn hadith, come at that time. So the student used to come and he used to listen to hadith. Imam Muhammad would be sitting there narrating hadith to the guy. And you can imagine Tahajjud time, who's really awake? You're tired. So the guy started to pass out. So Muhammad had some water. So he used to like smack him in the face with the water. Hey, stay up. You know, he was smiling and jolly and happy. But this is the type of, he said, look, I have no time. The rest of the day is teaching. This is my only time I have. You want to learn hadith from me especially? Come like this. There's no preference given to anyone who comes from any household or family, by the way. Because why? Imam Bukhari was told by the Amir, the Khalifa of his time, I want you to teach my child specifically, come to the palace. He said, my teaching is not in a palace, and my teaching is not specifically for anyone. He comes at this time, at this time, at this time in the masjid, you'll sit with everyone else. That's the way I'm going to teach. That's the way Islam was. There's no such thing as you coming from a family, you deserve extra teaching. None of that. So what happens is though, ulama go for years and hundreds of years like this. Eventually institutions are organized to bring scholars under one umbrella. They say all these ulama are doing all this work by themselves. Let's put them under one place, one area where people can all benefit from them. So you get these huge madrasas like Zaytuna in Qayrawan, which was established in 737. This is about 100 years, about give or take, after the Prophet passes away. They established this huge madrasa in Qayrawan, where many scholars, we're talking about Ibn Khaldun, who is studied now in advanced classes in Western universities. When they're studying history, they study Ibn Khaldun's works, right? This is how much they praise him. These scholars come out from these areas of Zaytuna. There's places in Azhar as well. There's the Madrasah Ashrafiyah in the area of Sham and Damascus, where Ibn Kathir studied. That place is amazing. Ibn Kathir studied there, Zahabi studied there, Ibn Taymiyyah studied there, Ibn Qayyim studied there. This place was just a banging place to go study if you want to go learn Islam, mashallah. Having said that, like they were assembled under certain areas. So that way studying becomes easier. Okay. And so this study was extremely thorough. I want to show you guys. In 1565, in Gregorian times, 1565, in the Ottoman areas, the madrasa curriculum consisted of 39 texts. Students would have to study before they could graduate. This included 12 books of tafsir, 12 books of hadith, 5 books on usul al-fiqh, 7 books on furu' al-fiqh, 3 Arabic full dictionaries they had to study before they left. Okay? If you think we don't know what books they studied, we know exactly what they studied. Right? This is how well these things were documented. We know exactly, and if you look through it, you can be like, hey, that looks like what we study in the madrasas, because it's been the same teaching for quite some time. Okay, and if you thought I was exaggerating during Jumu'ah when I said that the amount of madaris and the amount of ulama that we had in India wasn't as much as it was, this is from a census of India back in 1855. This is after the 1847 of the Indian Mutiny, and it was a very difficult time for the Muslims in that area. I'll be quite honest about it. So, but I want you just to look at this here. The number of institutions in 1855, okay? So you're going to see here unrecognized institutions on the bottom here. Okay, they say universities and colleges, they say secondary schools, primary schools, special schools, and they have unrecognized institutions. What do you think the unrecognized institutions are? They're madrasas. They're going to call them madrasas because they don't want to name it what it really is, right? So you're going to look at the numbers. So the universities, you have 21 in 1855, right? 21, 13, primary schools, 2,000, secondary schools, 200, madrasas, 47,000 in 1855, okay? You're looking at 1881, and I'm being real honest, one day maybe we'll talk about what the British did to India, and then you'd understand the pain that we have. Our ulama have not forgotten about it, The amount of scholars we used to have, look at the amount that is decreased. 47,000 madaris in 1855. In 1881, it goes on to 25,000. They destroyed a lot of places. They destroyed a lot of things happened. And I want you all to understand that and be aware that we do have an affinity or a love towards becoming a doctor, engineer, physician. And that's not because you were just born like that. It's because there was a certain mentality or methodology that was left by the British. And they're just like, this is the best job you can have, okay? You could not go and study to become a Maulana anymore, an Alim anymore, which would give you a government position. You become a Qadi, right? There are certain other greater positions you can have. You could think about things, right? You can actually make laws. They didn't want you to have those positions. Who had those positions? It was the British, right? So there's a lot of different things here, politics-wise, okay? But that's the number of institutions, okay? Now let's look at the scholars, the graduates. So we'll just briefly go down. 3,000 or so in 1855 of arts colleges, 912 for professional colleges, secondary schools, 33,000, primary schools, 96,000, unrecognized institutions, 800,000. The graduates that are coming out of these institutions are 800,000, okay? And again, you're gonna see that drop in 1881 because of what the British tried to do. So from 800,000 scholars, you go down to 350,000. There was a lot of missions that was conducted. May Allah SWT grant those scholars who stood up for the deen, Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la, and we are trying our best to revive that legacy. That's what we're trying to do here, okay? So it must come with practice, and you and I understand this, that the Quran came down with the teacher. The Quran didn't just come down. No one can just go and say, I'm studying tafsir by myself. I would never take tafsir from you. I would never take tafsir from you. I'll be real honest. I can't benefit at all from you. Because you have to be, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah said, about they asked about so-and-so person, and they said, what can I do about this man? He has never been found at the door of any scholar. What do you think I'm going to learn from him? Right? You and I understand that the kids will benefit because they're in front of the Maulana, the Alim. They benefit from his akhlaq and adab, and they love Islam because they love him. That's what it is, right? Many of us here, mashallah, why do we practice Islam? I just saw it, and I believe in it. You can't tell me why, I just do. Because I saw what I saw, and I agree with it. And that's the thing about giving your children to these scholars in the beginning, because they will make sure to teach them Islam from the get-go. And they'll love Islam because we love our Maulana. And they'll never be able to separate that. They'll love that reason. And then they'll learn from his adab and akhlaq. Uthman radiallahu anhu, when he sent out the Quran to every single area of the Muslim world at the time, he sent it with a qari to teach it, okay? So now we're understanding these things here, that Islam was spread with a teacher, and there was a huge importance to making sure madrasas were there. Now, these questions here are for the parents. We love our children. Can we ever tolerate that we're going to lose them to kufr, to atheism? Am I concerned for the deen and akhirah? Have I instilled within my child the love for Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Have I sufficiently educated my child regarding Islam and deen? Is my child's akhirah secure? My child's akhirah will impact my akhirah too. Allah Ta'ala will question me. I gave you the gift of children. Many people did not have children. What did you do with your children? Did I do the right thing with my kids? And if you're worried about these things, if you're concerned about these things, then alhamdulillah, we have a solution in front of us. That you and I can now place our children in an area where they'll be secure and safe from the other influences, okay? So now you want to, the Madrasah Project is because of that, it's designed for that. It's going to take the place of their schooling. It's going to place them in an Islamic environment and teach them Islam from age 5 all the way up to 18 and maybe even to 20 years old. They'll be here from the beginning to the end, mashallah, and they'll be out to do whatever they want afterwards. But we can be assured and we can make that proper concern and that contentment of heart that I did the best I could with my child. I gave him from 5 to 18, 13 years of Islam. I gave him 13 years of Islam. If that couldn't help him, I don't know what else can help him. You did your best, you did your duty, you did what you can. This is, if you can give him this thing, this madrasa curriculum, because why? Because you're going to teach from 8:30 all the way to about 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon. What is that time right now occupied by? 8:30 to 2:30 is occupied by school. So let's look at it. The average child. A child spends on average 8 hours sleeping. Your kid is a good kid, mashallah. He's not a Sumaya or Yahya, you know what I'm saying? You know, I'm gonna keep you up, you know. So or 6 to 7 hours. Don't worry, I love my kids. Okay, okay, that's mashallah. Okay. Like, Mullah, what are you saying? Okay. Barakallahu feekum, mashallah. 6 to 7 hours at school, and right now it's all online. So we're talking 30 to 35 hours a week. That's a job. That's a job. They're spending every single day of the weekdays. They're studying school from 6 to 7 hours, all online right now, right? And then when they come back home, the average child is 4 hours on their phones or 4 hours on their games. So that's 20 hours on weekdays. Okay. Okay, so we have a lot. And if you're thinking I'm making up that statistic about the 4 hours on the phones and games, I'm not. You can look this up yourself. They said 40% of kids are spending at least 30 hours a week on their cell phones. Because why? Because you're thinking they're on class. Come on, let's be honest here. The Zoom is out, the Discord is out, this is out, this is out. They're not studying. Half these kids are cheating while the class is going on. You know, come on. Like, let's be honest here. You know, the system is kind of broken because public schools try their best to adjust as fast as they can to an online schooling. If they just humble themselves and just went from the homeschooling people who have been doing it for years, for decades, right? They could have actually learned very quickly. But like, no, we'll do it ourselves. We'll figure it out, you know? So Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. So, but what we need to understand is, compared to what? The point was that you have 35 hours of studying in school. The entire syllabus, which is based on kufr and atheism. It's based on that. The foundations are on it. Compared to what? What do we have now? We have 1 or 2 hours on daily maktab. 4 days a week. How many hours is that? 4 to 8 hours at most, okay, weekly, okay? We can't even compete with the phones. The kids spend the same amount of time on their phones, okay? 2 hours weekly if you're only doing Sunday school. How are you supposed to compete with the entire work day? 35 hours, this kid is hearing one thing about how there's 17 genders out there, okay? And he's not able to switch from that. He's hearing about LGBTQ. Don't think they're not teaching your kids. Don't lie to yourself. They are teaching them from the beginning. They make books like this now. They're teaching them all these different things that you and I don't even know about. We never even heard about in our lives. And the science is not mentioned with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is mentioned about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing talking about God. There's no mention of Allah at all. And they're in that syllabus. Now I want you to know, if the parents aren't involved, the kid can get misguided very quickly. Okay? And so we have to understand and what do we do about the maktab? After the child is exhausted from being in a classroom all day, we say, now beta, you have to go to maktab. Is he excited? Maybe some kids in Burlington are, because mashallah, alhamdulillah, we try our best here. But majority of kids are tired. They're exhausted. Then what do? You send that kid for 4 hours of hifz. He's tired. I don't blame the kids. Sometimes they can't memorize because he's tired. Entire day he was thinking about work and school. He has homework to do. And then he comes to another 4 hours. He has to sit there. It's hard. I'm not saying, look, I'm not dissing or upsetting the system. It's just hard. And then on Sunday school, you're telling the kid to come on his day off. You think a kid wants to do that? Come on, let's be honest here. Kids don't want to do that. So the solution would be to give Islam to our children as their primary education. If you give it to them side by side with their academic studies, then the kid will not feel exhausted, he will not feel tired, and he'll get a lot of teaching of Islam, and he'll be in an Islamic environment from 8:30 to 2:30, mashallah, or 8:30 to 3:30. Okay? So now this will allow them to learn more naturally. What are we talking about? So we never talk about these things, about how much a person actually benefits from his memory. When you train your memory, your brain actually expands. Your brain can do a lot more. Memorization has been completely removed from Western syllabi. They don't memorize anything at all in these syllabuses. You know, if you're looking at them, the syllabi in this country, there's no memorization. There's nothing of that. You're thinking back home, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, everything is memorized. Everything is memorized. I loved it because I saw the madrasas. They're memorizing everything, even things they don't understand. They're just like, A plus B equals C and things like, they're memorizing even math, right? Arithmetic, everything they memorize. It's amazing. It helps you to memorize. Your brain works really well. You can remember a lot of things, okay? And so I want you to know, when kids memorize, we have a lot of studies. Working memory help us to learn new things and stimulates creativity. Dutch researchers found people with a higher working memory capacity can perform more creatively. However, under cognitive load that decreases working memory, they perform worse on a creative insight task. So when you have people who are working on their memories, they start to become more creative. What else do we find? Rote learning, memorizing, okay? It improves neuroplasticity. The brain actually functions much better. It showed about group participants aged 55 to 70. These researchers noted that the brain repeated activation of memory structures promotes neuronal plasticity in the aging brain. Your brain works better when you become older. And I challenge everyone. Have you ever seen an alim of deen that he reached like 60, 70 years old, but his brain wasn't sharp? They're so smart because the fact that their brains were so active when they were younger. Okay, there's so many more studies. Learning frees up brain power, and memory exercises help students to practice focus. ADHD has been found that if you actually get a kid to sit down, they're doing studies on this, that if you actually get a kid to sit down and memorize something, it actually calms the child down because now his brain can focus on something. Because there's so much scattered things, he watches so many things on YouTube, baby shark, do, whatever. He watches all this ajib stuff, so his brain can't focus anymore. There's too many colors and so many things that are happening. But if you get a kid to sit down in front of the Quran, and the page is not going to change, and he's just focused to memorizing, it actually helps them to calm down and relax. Okay, so there's so much more. There's so much more. I don't have enough time to cover all these things. We should understand that what led Muslims to have their golden age is to be at the top of every discipline is because of this reason. It's because of this reason their brains were completely active. They're completely in the zone, mashallah. Okay, and Allah Ta'ala knows best. I only mentioned it, if you're wondering why am I mentioning all the worldly benefits, because I understand as a parent why I'd be scared to send my kid to go to a madrasa or to sit there and memorize Quran all day, because you think your child will become dumb. We think it comes in the back of our mind. Oh, he might not become smart. But I want you to know what you've been fed is a lie. Children who are hafiz of the Quran are very exceptionally smart, mashallah. If we were to do a study from our own Burlington, we'd probably find a good amount of information here. I'm not going to do that. But you have to think for yourselves, how could it be that Allah Ta'ala would make a person who learned his deen become miserable in dunya? How could you think that? Have you ever seen an alim who died from starvation? Probably died from overeating. Not the other way around. Okay, like you have to understand that when you memorize and contemplate, and Allah Ta'ala knows best about what other things are inside this Quran when people memorize. We're doing it for Allah's pleasure. If you're wondering what my intention is, the dunyawi benefits are secondary to me. The kid, mashallah, becomes this smart, that smart. Mashallah, if he becomes a jannati, I'm happy with that. I really am. That's my goal. That he gets the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That his parents will get the crown on the day of judgment. That's my goal here. That's what I want. And have faith in Allah that if you sent your kid to learn deen, don't worry about his dunya. Allah will take care of it. Have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, please. Trust Allah. He'll take care of it for you. So the madrasa daily schedule, these are the short little things here, inshallah ta'ala. We'll finish up on these things. The madrasa daily schedule for ages 5 to 13, which is from 1st grade to 8th grade. Okay, and if you guys have your phones, you guys can look on here if you want. Again, it's that's why I made the presentation, so you guys can look at it. And I would like you guys to see it, so that way you know what you're putting your children into, right? If you are going to consider sending your children for this program. So ages 5 to 13, 8:30 to 10:30, they'll be learning, basically the goal is within those 2 hours, right? It is the goal is to make them either hafiz of the Quran or memorize a huge portion of the Quran, okay? So the idea is that the kid will start at 5 years old. He'll learn his Quran min easy. He'll learn his tajweed. He'll start memorizing from the get-go. Because the best way kids learn at that age is that parents read and the child repeats. And so that repetition that children can do, and think about yourselves too. Like think about your own system back home. People had to do is what? The Qari would say something loud and all the kids would repeat. And then we learned at-tahiyat, dua qunut. Dua qunut is hard. Dua qunut is very hard. But these kids, it's impossible. I've been trying very hard. After a while, I'm just like, just say Rabbi Fili, brother. Because it's just so hard for these kids. But what did the Qari Sahib back home do? Everyone all together. Now one kid stand up. Now you make the entire class do it. Now you get up. Same exact thing you can do with Quran. It works. It works. I did it during summer school programs here. It works. Kids memorize a huge portion of Surah Waqiyah. Some of them memorize the entire Waqiyah. because you just keep reading the ayah over and over. Eventually it sticks, right? It's not going to change. So having said that, the goal is that the kid will memorize a majority of the Quran, if not the entire thing. Along with that, they'll memorize hadith and they'll memorize du'as. From 11 to 12:30 will be their Islamic studies through the Nasiha curriculum. They'll learn beliefs, they'll learn fiqh, they'll learn hadith, tariq, history, akhlaq, mannerisms, and all these different things, mannerisms and other things. The goal is that each student, all students will learn the basics of Islam, as well as memorize large parts of the Quran, if not the entire thing. You have from age 5 to age 13. The goal is that within 8 years to produce every child that comes into the doorway to make them a hafiz of the Quran. It's the goal. And obviously some kids will reach it and some kids will be a little lower. But having said that, we at least push them so far that they can at least say, mashallah, I memorize a huge portion of the Quran. Okay, that's our goal here. So mashallah, within that 8 years, confidently we can say, inshallah, it can be done. Being within an environment which is safe from un-Islamic practices and teachings, right? This place that they're going to be in is completely free from all these haram things that are in high schools and middle schools and college, all this type of setting, okay? The Prophet ﷺ said to us that a man is on the religion of his best friend. So be careful about the person that you befriend, right? Be careful about your friends. So we're going to keep them in a good environment, mashallah. So they only have Muslim friends. I tell some of these kids all the time, I'm so jealous of you people because I never had Muslim friends growing up. I had like Tibetan friends and Nigerian friends and all these different friends. I had an exotic group of friends, but none of them who could talk to Islam about me. My good friend who was a Muslim was a guy who was drinking Coca-Cola in the morning for Ramadan. Like I wish I had friends that were Muslims. Okay, and so the other advantages you'll find in this program, each kid will learn Quran with tajweed, is a priority in this curriculum, as well as memorization of major surahs. Memorization of approximately, if you're wondering about how many hadiths they'll memorize over 8 years, over 300 hadiths. We have a goal that every child by the end of 8 years will memorize 300 hadiths. You're saying, how could that be? Man, I can give you one of our kids from this full-time alim course. Mashallah, 1 year that they've been here, they've already memorized over 100 hadiths. Okay, and people who are in the part-time class be like, yeah, it's definitely possible. Within 8 years, you can make it happen. They'll learn many du'as, many nazms, right? Unfortunately, everyone learns what? Like hickory dickory dock, something about a clock and something, right? Everything like, the lullabies and all these things. Teach them nazms. Teach them beautiful poetry. Teach them things like that. Tala al badru alayna. Teach them beautiful things from Islam. Kids can learn it. They can learn it the same way they learn nursery rhymes. Don't tell yourself they can't. They'll learn it, okay? The girls are separated from the boys from age 8 and up. We're going to keep them separate from there. And the girls are only taught by trained female teachers, right? We're going to make sure we have our qualified female staff on that, inshallah, for teaching the girls. Okay, for the Alimiya stream, for the kids for ages 14 and up, right, it goes up to 14 to 20. And I'll explain why in a second, why it's up to 20 years old. You might think it's up to 18. I'll explain it in a second. So from 8:30 to 12:30, they're learning Arabic grammar, Arabic morphology, Arabic exercise books, Aqidah, Hadith, Fiqh, and Urdu as a third language. I say as a third language because English first and then Arabic second and Urdu third. And you're like, why are you teaching Urdu? I'm going to teach them everything. I'm not racist or something. I'm going to teach them everything. They're going to learn Urdu, they're going to learn Farsi, they're going to learn Hebrew. MashaAllah, the kids here, they can read Urdu now. It's first year, MashaAllah. I'll show you guys when we have a chance to show in Jalsa. I'll show you how they can read Urdu, MashaAllah. They like it. Now, I used to think like, oh, what's the point? But having said that, these are Islamic languages. Like our Islam developed through these languages. They should learn it. And I think parents would be happy like, oh, beta knows Urdu now. I can't start speaking behind his back anymore. And Farsi, Persian that was the first language which the Quran was translated into. We don't even understand that. And Hebrew, like, why do you need to learn Hebrew? Because eventually this alim will have to be able to go through the Old Testament and New Testaments, right? They have to be able to refute these things. They're all part of the syllabus, okay? So the first year books are about 28 or so. I can tell you, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, it's February now, we finished about 18 to 20. Inshallah, we'll be done with the last couple of books before Ramadan, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Thank Allah Ta'ala for that, mashallah. And I thank, again, the committee members who made this happen, mashallah, that they were so patient with us. These kids, alhamdulillah, are learning. And if you see them, you'll be so happy. You'll be so proud of them, mashallah. So now the final 2 years, so the syllabus, if you look at it, the fourth year of Alim course ends at high school. Because I'm well aware that parents may not want their child to become the full Maulana or Alim. And I completely understand that, okay? What I want to do is I want to make sure your child has been well equipped with knowledge, that if he finishes that fourth year, alhamdulillah, go ahead, whatever degree, university, whatever you want to do, mashallah, but I can say confidently this kid has learned his deen. If he goes there, he won't be misguided, he won't be messed up. Will I encourage him to become full alim? Of course I will. You think I'm not going to? Obviously, but the last 2 years are going to be within the college level because I expect this child to make sure that his life will be on this knowledge. He's not going to go towards any other discipline or any other job. That's the point here. His profession will be Islam. I will teach Islam, I will instruct Islam, my life will be on the khidmat of deen. You need people who are dedicated like that. So this kid will know that if I'm going to give my college years for this, it's 100%. And then the next 2 years, so if you want to be certified with the Alimiya degree, you're going to have to do 2 more years within the college like realm, and then you'll be finished like so. Okay. Having said that, again, I know parents will want to maybe take out their kids during middle school. If they want to take them out during high school, that's up to you. My job is to make sure, again, to give them as much teaching as I can. And I will encourage you, of course, to let them go through the full system, go through the entire curriculum, of course. But I made it a little flexible because I understand as a parent where your minds might be, where people's intentions might be. Okay, so I left that there. Okay, so now there are plans to add specialization courses, takhasus courses, to specialize even further, because obviously you get an associate's degree, right? You study tafsir, hadith, fiqh, Arabic. There are many other classes to study afterwards for children. So mashallah, they become even more learned within the deen. Okay, and after Zuhr, the kids will be given time to complete their academic studies. Okay, so the last section that we have, jazakallah for you guys sitting here and being patient. The last section that we have is about homeschooling. Okay, so the hours of homeschooling will be the second half of the day, which will have 2.5 hours dedicated to kids just sitting here and completing their homeschooling studies. Okay, so this is, again, we're going to help the parents in setting up a online homeschooling program with them, so that way they are well equipped. Alhamdulillah, we have many brothers who are well informed about these things, these issues, and they will help the parents make sure that their child is in a proper homeschooling program. And if you are not comfortable with your child studying at home, he's more than welcome to stay here, or she's more than welcome to stay here and finish their homeschooling studies and then go home. We're completely fine with that. We'll have someone supervising and watching this, but this is not the focus of the madrasa. Making it very clear, it's not the focus of the madrasa. The primary responsibility of the madrasa will be on the primary responsibility of the madrasa will be deen, Islam. The responsibility of the homeschooling will be on the parents. In other words, we're not going to give you grades about what they're getting from their schooling. That's not our job. The job is to, again, our job is to make sure they have a place to learn Islam, and we will help you with your homeschooling as much as we can. Having said that, that's the responsibility of the parents. You're not even bound to the madrasa. If you don't even want to put them here for homeschooling, sit here, whatever, you can take them, you can do whatever you want. That's your responsibility. Wherever the parent would like to do it, that's up to you. I understand though that certain parents might not feel comfortable with homeschooling. And I want you to all know that what you've been fed about public schools, because we are thinking again from our back home or our understanding where we came from. You're understanding school to be a certain thing, right? And then you're thinking homeschooling is not good at all. Kids don't come out good at all. It's not what the facts say. What do the facts say, right? We find that the review of several US studies, right, that show that none had reported higher standardized test scores for traditional education samples over homeschool samples. In other words, you never find that a kid who was in a public school will actually learn any better than a homeschool child. Then it goes to also find, the review also found the majority of higher education admission officers expect homeschool graduates to perform overall as well or better in their first year of college than traditional high school graduates. Okay, so what we understand is what is known is that homeschool students who go on to college and adulthood do quite well. It's not just about their college years. 78% of peer-reviewed academic studies on academic achievement show homeschool students to perform statistically better than those in institutional schools. In other words, 80% or so of kids who come out from homeschooling actually do better than kids who go to public school. Okay, what else do we find? And this is just to give you a little graph here. You'll find that 65 to 80% of homeschool students do better than kids who go to state schools. Okay, we find in higher education that when it comes to the proportion of general population hold a bachelor or above, a degree or above, compared to 33 homeschool respondents, right? We find that the general population has less college degrees than kids who actually go to homeschool. In other words, homeschool students actually they finish their bachelor's and they actually are more successful within the college years. Okay, so what else do we find? We find that 69% of peer-reviewed studies on success into adulthood show adults who are home educated succeed and perform statistically significantly better than those who attended institutional schools. Again, you get a good 70% of kids who do better. We've also find that 87% of peer-reviewed studies on social, emotional, and psychological development show homeschool students perform statistically better, significantly better than those in conventional schools. What does that mean? Many parents think that when my kid goes to homeschool, he won't have any social skills. And I want you to know that I've studied with kids who were homeschooled, kids who are younger than me homeschooled. In madrasa, they're all basically homeschooled. And I have not found a single kid who wasn't good with social skills. Okay, I'm saying from experience. They're giving you 90% of kids here. And I'm telling you from experience. And don't worry about it. They're being in the madrasa anyways. You think you're not going to socialize? They'll socialize. And I'm telling you, if I were to tell you the kids, you know, for halaqas we used to have, there are so many kids that are homeschooled within our own community. You were just never able to tell the difference. Because that's how well they're taught. Okay, so don't worry about not being socialized. That's not an issue here. They're well educated, right? And they learn so many different things here, mashallah. And does the parents' education matter? It doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter about how the level of formal education of the parents or the family's household income. It doesn't matter how the parents were. Some parents are like, I'm not that smart, how can I teach my kid? Don't worry, these programs have been well developed. They're very good programs. That's what I was saying about public schools. They really screwed up. If they only took help from a lot of homeschooling programs, they would have actually solved a lot of the problems. You have 50% of kids in New York dropping out because they don't know how to, they don't want to log into Zoom and all these online curriculums. Okay, and so what we find is the pandemic has parents fleeing from schools maybe forever. Mashallah, there was one time where we used to say, trust in the homeschooling program, it's online. Like, how can I believe in an online system? You've been doing online for the last year. You've been doing online for the last year. You've seen what has happened. You wish you had something better. I'm telling you, the homeschooling programs that they have are much better than these things. Okay, parents have actually given up on public schools. Some of them have just completely switched to homeschools from the pandemic. Mashallah. I'm only mentioning these things again. It's not our responsibility. I just know as a parent, you might be worried. I would be worried too. You have nothing to worry about. Okay, so quickly enough and everything. So now, mashallah, the final things I want you to know is that these public schools that you have is, there's a lot of time that is wasted. There's a lot of bullying, cyberbullying, rude interactions in schools. These kids will tell you, name calling, insulting them for their religions. Girls don't want to wear their hijab because why? Because my friends don't wear hijab. She feels so much pressure, peer pressure to do drugs, to do alcohol, all these different things. A lot of abuse, a lot of issues happen because kids go through high school, right? The drugs, the party, the prom, all these things are there, okay? And what parents thought from coming from back home is what? You thought it would be that they will go to school, they'll memorize things, and they'll learn nicely. You didn't want the rest of this junk. You didn't want the rest of these issues. You don't want this bullying and all these different problems. Unfortunately, it's with the package. If you get the public school, you're going to get this package too. What we encourage everyone is to do what? If you understand that I just wanted him to learn, that's exactly what a homeschooling program is. The kid will just learn and he'll be in a safe environment. You don't have to worry about classmates. He's the only one there. And you know exactly what the child will learn, mashallah. So you have all these benefits. And I hope, inshallah, one day, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, that we can integrate all this stuff into a fully working madrasa. Because in reality, the madaris of the past did teach these subjects. We're just not on that level yet. And I hope, inshallah, one day it does happen. Make dua. I don't think I'm going to do it. Maybe one of these kids, mashallah, after we all die, mashallah, and then, mashallah, the grandchildren, great-grandchildren, mashallah, have a full working madrasa. People look at Burlington be like, man, that's a gem. That's a gem, mashallah. It's on top of America, mashallah. That's what we need to be like, That's what people will say, inshallah. But we have to be people that can provide our children with a safe Islamic education, inshallah. My humble request is that parents, mashallah, that are listening to this, you might have children that are already adults. You might have children that are already grown up. Why do I care? And it hurts me that people even say such a thing. That you say that my child is old, why do I even care anymore? Ya Allah, every child that comes out of this community is my child. If he doesn't get Islam, that's my fault. I should have been concerned. I should have been worried. Imagine the Prophet ﷺ thought about this like that. He said, just my family, my family, my family. The deen would never spread. Sahaba were concerned about other people's kids. That's how deen spread. Please don't be that parent who says, it's just my child, I don't care about anyone else. If you are a parent who, mashallah, has a child who's already adult, either the kid is dini, mashallah, then may Allah reward you. Make other kids dini too, make them other religious children as well. If your child is not religious, mashallah, now you have an opportunity to save other kids. Don't let other kids be deprived of this opportunity. Maybe you can be the one who financially donates to this project to make sure it's successful. And this is your sadaqah for a lifetime. That till Qiyamah, mashallah, you'll be saving kids for all the generations to come, mashallah. Okay? So it could be your grandchildren or great-grandchildren, you don't know. And we need a system set for every child, inshallah. Any parents who are ready for this, inshallah, who are thinking about it for themselves, I ask you all, inshallah, to please fill out the form in ICB student registration form. Right, mashallah, you have it on the website. You go to icburlington.org under Islamic School Registration tab. You can enroll your children, inshallah ta'ala, into this program, mashallah. Again, we want to communicate with parents. We want to know your concerns. We want to know what you can do, how much help you need, all these things. Again, we don't talk to a lot of our parents, a lot of the teachers in school. You can talk to me about anything. That's fine. I've been talking to everyone here for 5 years now, mashallah, basically. You can talk to me. You can tell me what it is, what is at home. We can all talk about these things because we're working for the same goal here. I want your kid to be as religious as you want him to be, mashallah. So we can work together. So I want everyone to communicate, inshallah. If there's anything that you need, any specific things you need, please let us know. And please, inshallah, if you want to be the first parents to enroll your children, alhamdulillah, the door is completely open for everyone, mashallah. And please, inshallah, we have a survey that we want to see how much people are interested in this project, how much you think we need this project. So there will be the survey will be given out at the end of this halaqah, which is way too long right now. So mashallah, please, inshallah, fill it out. It will take you a couple of minutes. May Allah reward you for your time. And if you are really interested, again, please reach out to the masjid as soon as possible. We want to see how many kids we have, so we know how many teachers to get and how much staff we need, right? So it's all dependent on what we get. We're working with the individual students. I'm telling you, it's all on an individual basis here. If we get enough students, we'll get another teacher. If we get eighth graders, we'll get an eighth grade teacher. We'll get everything that we need, But we need to see how many people are really willing to get this project done. May Allah give us all tawfiq, so much hidayah. Jazakallah khairan for listening to me for this long. May Allah reward you for your time. Accept this project. Make dua for this project. Make dua for all the teachers who are behind this, all the brothers and sisters who are working behind this, mashallah. And may Allah reward every parent, and may Allah preserve every child. Every child that comes out from the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, make them dindar, make them nek and salih. May Allah raise them on the day of judgment as an honor for the Muslims. May Allah put them Jannah Firdaus. May Allah put us with our children Jannah Firdaus. May Allah reward every single parent, inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu alaihi Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes. Oh, yes. So if everything goes according to plan, and again, if anyone has any quick questions, inshallah, we can take them. If everything goes according to plan, inshallah, we are planning, inshallah ta'ala, to start from the younger stream from September, inshallah. Okay, so the same year that the school year will go. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start from September there. And the alim course, though, these kids are jailed to me. Okay, so they'll be locked up for a long time, so don't worry about that. Okay, so alhamdulillah. So inshallah, if anyone like to send their child and you're thinking about it, you have till September, of course, to get that done. Any other questions? Take inshallah. Bottom line? Fulus. Muazzam bhai. Muazzam bhai is there, mashallah. Is it inside the masjid? Yes, it will be inside the masjid, inshallah. We're conducting all our classes inside the masjid, inshallah ta'ala. It's the way of our ummah. I know people are like, oh, you need a classroom, you need classes and stuff. This is a Western way of teaching, honestly. The madrasas were what? All in masajid. I just told you Abu Hanifa's story, right? One pillar to one pillar. So understand that, mashallah, you have these partitions here. Mashallah, Allah has put a interesting sunnah in this masjid that people haven't even noticed, So, mashallah, I'm not saying now we're not going to get classrooms. Oh, he's not going to build anything, No, mashallah, we will. But having said that, don't get too disturbed if it is in the masjid or not. That's not what you should be focusing on. Will healthy eating be promoted and junk food discouraged? The food right now, mashallah, we consider that because of the lack of a kitchen staff or cafeteria staff, every child will bring their food from home, inshallah. And we, of course, encourage healthy eating. Of course, why wouldn't we? Because of the fact that Muslims, we should be eating healthier. And of course, we will be very careful with kids sharing foods. The same way you wonder, you know how Sunday school is operating basically? We're very concerned with our children at that time, with the same exact way, inshallah, and if not even better, inshallah. Any other questions? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Eighth. Yeah. Yes. So again, if a parent in the middle wants to switch between public school or not, again, I told you it's flexible. We can't bar any kid here. We can't hold any kid here, right? If a parent wants to take them, they're more than welcome to take them at any time. Of course, we discourage it because we think that first let them finish the course and then let them go. Having said that, I told you that I broke it down in ways that parents, if they were considering it, I gave you certain ways that okay, maybe at this age I'll take them out, maybe at this age I'll take them out. It's open for people like that. But having said that, we wouldn't encourage it, right? Because we want kids to finish, but I can't hold your kid. What am I supposed to do, right? So, 5-year-old who does not know how to read the Quran wants to approach. Again, mashallah, we've trained many kids from here, 4 or 5 years old. They all learn how to read Quran. All of them are in like basically his program, mashallah. Having said that, like we'll teach the kid how to read Quran. And again, you have to understand there are teachers that are entrusted with this program have been teaching for quite some time. They have a lot of years under their belt of teaching. They've worked with kids and teach them from the beginning all the way to the end, mashallah. So don't worry about that. Every kid will be taught, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. The presentation, mashallah, I'll share it. If you're asking about it now, it was on the Zoom link. Okay, but I will share it, inshallah ta'ala. Maybe we can send it out to the community through email. So make sure we can send it, inshallah, through info@IC Burlington. And that way you can access the presentation, inshallah. Survey and presentation, inshallah. Sounds good, mashallah. Any other questions? Yes. Yes, can a child who's a bit older than 5 join? Of course they can. Again, it will start from when the child starts. The nice thing about flexible systems like this, especially madrasa systems, that kids can join at any age that they want to come in. A classroom will be set up for them. Again, I told you the individual basis. If a kid was learning, from 6 years old, he needs to go from Quran made easy. You can put him in Quran made easy. If he needs to learn tajweed, we can put him in tajweed. If he needs to learn nazara, we can put him in nazara. You have so much possibilities as long as you have teachers that are behind these things, inshallah. It's a very good question. Are parents responsible for the secular classes? Uh, yes, the parents are responsible for the secular classes in the sense that they are the ones who will take care of the homeschooling. We will give them time to do their homeschooling. We'll give them administrators to make sure the homeschooling is functioning well here. But having said that, we're not responsible for it. And make that clear. The parents, if they want to make sure their child is completely homeschooled or raised well with their academic studies, that's on the parents. Okay. Having said that, don't think I want to leave them to die. Okay. I am not someone who myself, I've studied, I went to college. I won't leave your children to just be like, oh, they don't know anything. Okay, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm just saying that the responsibility is on the parents. But we can help them to connect with homeschooling programs and curricula, whatever they need. MashaAllah, we'll help them as much as we can. Really, we're here to support you. I'm just saying that the responsibility is not the madrasa's responsibility. Okay. Any other questions? What is the kid's daily schedule be like? Okay, we've already addressed this in the presentation. So, mashallah, we're not going to redo it. Okay, we're way over time. Mashallah. Okay, so we'll close it there. If there are any other questions, please send it to info IC Burlington. We're at your service, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.